Ahmed Rashid, in terms of the objectives in Afghanistan, General Petraeus famously said that we were not trying to create Switzerland. But as we approach 2014, what is the measure of success in Afghanistan?
General Petraeus said that, but the fact was that in 2001, American, British, European leaders were all talking about rebuilding Afghanistan like a Switzerland almost. And they promised a great deal to the Afghans. I think, one of the very big mistakes was that the whole issue of nation building, which really meant rebuilding the Afghan infrastructure, was very slow. And it didn't really take off till 2004, 2005, by which time the insurgency had started and it was very difficult to get things done quickly. And as a result, we haven't had the kind of economic development in 10 years, which we should have, especially considering the funding that has gone in from the Western countries into Afghanistan on economic development. After all, the Afghan government is still generating only about $1 billion a year as revenue, which is pitiful after 10 years of investment. But on the other side, the social sector has been a massive improvement. There's a whole new generation of Afghans, urban, educated, semi-educated Afghans who have grown up under this Western presence and have benefited enormously from this Western presence. They're going to school, some of them have got jobs, women have been, freed from the home, etc. So, it's a mixed bag of what has happened.
Do you feel that the Afghanistan conflict has reached a stage where, whether your point of view is positive or negative, you can find something in there to justify your opinion?
Yes, certainly, because, it has not been a resounding success. The insurgency has not been beaten or co-opted into the government. The economic development has been patchy. The relations with the neighbors have been very difficult. So, yes, it is very easy to find whatever you're looking for in this conflict. But I think, there are now, certain realities with 2014 coming, the withdrawal coming. I think, the US, NATO, the Afghan government, they all have to make very serious assessments in the next 18 months as to, what they want to do, where they want to go with 2014 coming. And it's not just a question of security, it's about a whole host of other issues.
And some of those other issues may involve economic issues. How key do you feel that the economy of Afghanistan is to the security of Afghanistan?
Well, I think it's absolutely critical. And it's very worrying for me that the thousands and thousands of Afghans who work for the Western security forces as cooks or cleaners, translators, clerks, typists, whatever, are suddenly, who have been used to a certain lifestyle, a certain job, a certain income, who've benefited enormously, who've improved their educational standards from these jobs, they're all going to be out on the street without a job. And the economy is not in a position to absorb them. So my question to NATO is, what is NATO doing to ease this transition, to create the kind of space for employment of these people so that they do not, number one, join the Taliban in kind of disgust and anger and frustration, or that they just leave the country and become lumpen refugees sitting in Europe or illegals somewhere else. So there is a very critical economic situation, I think, that everyone should be looking at from now. That includes the Western powers and, of course, the Afghan government.
Clearly, after 2014, the major support that the West will be able to give Afghanistan will largely be in aid contributions. Do you feel that Afghanistan has tackled sufficiently the corruption to guarantee that that aid can go to the right places in Afghanistan?
Probably not. It's very difficult to see that happening even in the next 18 months or so. And it's even more difficult to see whether the individual ministries in the government are going to have the capacity to run their own ministries, their own budgets, and deal with their ministries fairly, without corruption and without Westerners guiding them as to what to do.
2014 will clearly be a milestone year for Afghanistan. How do you feel the year is perceived by ordinary Afghans in the street?
Nobody is expecting Afghanistan to be perfect in 2014. But I think the focus that has been put by NATO and the US on creating the ANA, the Afghan security forces, we need now a similar kind of focus and attention and planning and money to deal with issues like the economy, issues like corruption, issues like planning to how to end the ethnic divide that has got worse and worse, in fact, in Afghanistan between Pashtun and non-Pashtun, and how to deal with this whole issue of governance and decentralization, because a lot of people are demanding changes in the constitution. And that could well erupt in 2014, which is also the year, by the way, of elections.
In terms of the Taliban, you wrote a best-selling book about the Taliban. What do you feel is the role of the Taliban going forward?
Look, I think there is a very serious attempt by some of the older leadership from the 90s, which includes people around Mullah Omar, who would like to see a settlement. And there are many reasons I can give you why they want a settlement, but the most compelling reason to me is the fact that they understand fully that they failed at governance in the 90s when they were ruling the country. And they are also aware that if they were to rule the country again, they would probably fail again, because they would be abandoned immediately by the international community. There'd be no money, no aid. So in their thinking, it's much more, it would be much more appropriate and for their own survival to go in for a power-sharing agreement with somebody like Karzai or whoever the government is in Kabul, go in for a power-sharing agreement, come to some kind of agreement with them, so that they would get a share of power, they would be able to rule perhaps in some of the provinces where they are traditionally from, but they would not alienate the neighbors, the West, and the aid would keep coming.
If we imagine that kind of government, that kind of coalition arrangement coming to fruition, what would an Afghanistan ruled in that way look like? Would it roll back the advances, for example, of the last 10 years?
Well, obviously, that would be an overriding demand by the Afghans and by the West, that the concessions to the Taliban on issues like education, women, on all the social advances that have been made, and even entrepreneurship, businesses, etc. Those are really not up there to be bargained away or to be rolled back. I think one issue which the Taliban would probably want, and what a lot of Afghans want, is decentralization of the government. Afghanistan is too centralized. The president has too much power. And maybe that was a need in 2004 when the constitution was actually made. But I think, Afghanistan has gone on since then, and people want power devolved to the provinces, to the local areas.
And so you could foresee a Taliban that is moderate enough to actually concede that some of the strictures of the 90s were misplaced and should not be reintroduced.
Yes, I think the Taliban have conceded some of those things already. Already there is an official edict by the Taliban allowing girls' education. This has been operational for about 2 years. There is a very firm direction by Mullah Omar not to burn down schools, and attack schools and school teachers and all the rest of it. It hasn't been fully applied because sort of rogue commanders and all are still doing that kind of thing. The closest we've seen recently was a Taliban commitment not to allow any foreign terrorist groups on a future Afghanistan, which of course implies that what the Americans have been demanding, that distance themselves from Al-Qaeda. So I think, given the fact that we don't have a peace process at the moment and we really don't have negotiations at the moment, I think the Taliban have made already some concessions.
Ahmed Rashid, thank you very much.